On page 1, you'll find information on the operation of the Manitoba Hall of Fame and Museum Board. The annual general meeting is tentatively scheduled for September the 29th, and if you're interested in serving on the board or volunteering, please make your interest known to any board member. Now, some of you may have already checked out the silent auction. I'm going to flog this again. Where are our ticket sellers? Are they in the room, or have they escaped? They're having pizza. Oh, the door's up. Well, we'll find them, but they are available. The tickets are $10 for a sheet, or 25 tickets for $20 for 3 sheets. For 3 sheets, that's a great deal. And once the second half begins, it's too late and you go home with nothing. Now, if you're a big planner and you want to know when next year's event is, it is back in this room. Different food, although tonight's was spectacular. Mr. Nordman, I'm sure you'll be here having the same food. It is on May the 7th, so you can note that down. Now, this year is Manitoba's Homecoming 2010, and celebrations are being held everywhere. Now, the Hall of Fame welcomes former Manitobans and all visitors to our great province, but what you may not know is that famous song, Moody Manitoba Morning, was actually authored by one of our inductees. He has graciously agreed to perform for us tonight. Returning to Winnipeg from Salt Spring Island, BC, please welcome Rick Neufeld.
I played second base, and somebody came in high on a slide just to break up a double play. Now I can barely walk, let alone stand up and play guitar. I want to thank Mike for helping me out here. This is kind of impromptu, and we're going to try not to have a big setup. I can't believe I got to sit at a table right next to Shampoo, pretty much. Ray Shambura, a legend. Oh, we don't eat quite that much. This is a song that I wrote at a folk festival in Sudbury when the late great Stan Rogers and I had a work assigned to compete to write a song in an hour. And we had 10 minutes on stage, and then we could take 10 minutes off and work on the song. I think you can take that down just a bit, please. It's not. few people here tonight have said, yeah, you did play. I'm kind of grateful that as a songwriter, I think I might have had one more hit than I did as a Black Knight. We can take a little more guitar on this one, I think. I'd like to dedicate this song to my date tonight, my granddaughter Zaya. Is there some water that I might be able to have? My family was so proud to have Deb Morrison-Neufeld, or Bev, inducted last year. It kind of makes all this seem so silly with me getting inducted, but of course we lost a great ball player, Ashley, over the last year. So this was in her memory, and I hope you can support the Ashley Neufeld Memorial Fund, which is on your website. I knew there was a good reason to bring him along. It's a moody Manitoba morning. Nothing's really happening. It never does, but just got up and waiting for the mailman to bring me a letter that never was. I'm not sad or happy, I'm just living day by day. It's a moody Manitoba morning, and I like it that way. It's a long, kind of gentle, lazy prairie town afternoon. The sky is high, I can feel the grass growing from yesterday's rain. The sun's a-glowing, and so am I. Read the afternoon paper just to see where the world was at. It's a long, kind of gentle, lazy day. It's after 9. Go slowly walking up and down Main Street with a special girl. Things are fine. Now it's time to go home. Tomorrow's another day. Another moody Manitoba morning.
Ladies and gentlemen, Rick Neufeld. And just before we begin with the induction ceremony, we're going to take about a 10-minute break. It'll give us a chance to get our first inductees ready. And so would the first group of inductees or their representatives assemble to my right? And that's Wayne Deschouwer, Ben Adelman, Deleau, Ernie Peters, Allan Sharpe, and Trevor Denisick, as well as the representatives of the 1923 to 1928 Winnipeg Ramblers girls softball team. And we'll see you back in about 10 minutes. Ladies and gentlemen, if I can ask you to please take your seats. We'd like to get underway. For those of you that are hockey fans in the room, I can report it is 3-0 for Vancouver. Indeed. Tonight we are here to formally induct 10 individuals and 3 teams into the Manitoba Softball Hall of Fame. The inductions will be done in 2 parts. In the first half, we'll induct 6 individuals and 1 team. We'll have a short intermission, and then the remaining 4 inductees, along with the remaining 2 teams, will be inducted. Now, there is in the program a write-up about each one of the individuals. What I'm going to try to do is focus on some of the highlights and maybe tell some stories. Many of you may have not seen the awards that are presented to the inductees. They're on the table to my right. Individuals and teams receive a large stained glass award in the shape of the province of Manitoba, while each team member receives a smaller stained glass award in the shape of the home plate. These unique awards were designed specifically for the Hall of Fame by designer Ruth Brownridge of Portage la Prairie. Go ahead, cheer for Ruth. They're beautiful. All right. Inductees also receive a certificate to commemorate their induction into the Hall of Fame, and in addition, permanent plaques with photos and text about them are produced. They will soon join the current members in the Hall of Fame gallery at the museum in Portage. Laminated copies of the plaques can be ordered, and they're available if you would like to take a look at them at the memorabilia table. Order forms are also available there. They're $25 if you pick them up in Winnipeg and $37 if you would like it mailed. As well, the evening procedures are being recorded, and if you'd like a DVD, you can purchase them for the cost of $20 plus shipping. You'd see Grace Bouchard again, just at the second table here. You see Grace if you want to give money for anything tonight. Now, we do have an official photographer right in front of me. Jeff Lucier is taking a photo of each presentation, and if you'd like to see Jeff, he's right here. Jeff, why don't you stand up for 1 second? You can see him and place an order. He also has an ad in the program under Icarius Photographics. So if you'd like to take a photo of anybody that's up here while I'm speaking, I encourage you to rush the front so that you can take your photo while they're presenting the awards. Now, Sharon, where's Sharon? Sharon's going to be, there she is. Oh, sitting, Sharon. We'll be assisting with the awards presentation, and I think we're ready to go. Our first team induction. The criteria: a team may be inducted into the Hall of Fame for a single season achievement or a long-term accomplishment. Any nomination for a long-term accomplishment must cover a minimum of 2 years and a maximum of 6. Our first team being inducted tonight is the 1923 to 1928 Winnipeg Ramblers girls softball team. Sure. The Winnipeg Ramblers were the top female softball team in Winnipeg. In 1923, they became a founding member of the Winnipeg Girls Softball League. The story behind the Ramblers and the league is somewhat like a story from rags to riches. They were told that it would not be easy because it's a man's game. But within a couple of years, the Ramblers, along with the rest of the league, were playing in front of 10,000 people each week. This was an era when the catcher and the first base person were the only players to wear gloves. The girls used whatever bats and balls they could borrow. One ball was used for the entire season, and it often became so lopsided, it's amazing that any ball was ever banged out of the park. At the beginning, each player provided their own uniform, and most started out in gym bloomers and middies. The girls were so proud to obtain official uniforms in 1924. Clubs operated on $15 a season, and they were financed by hat collections. As well, each team had its own umpire. Throughout these beginnings, the Ramblers became a powerhouse. They won the league championship in 1923, 24, 25, 26, did not take part in 1927, and lost in an extra game in the 1928 playoffs. Over a 4-year period, the Ramblers won 104 league games, and it was not until 1927 that they suffered a defeat. Throughout this time, the Ramblers had a well-known reputation for harmony and cooperation amongst the team. Although with only losing 1 game in 4 years, how could you not be harmonious? Now let's meet the team members. As each individual's name is announced, we'd ask for the representative to come forward to receive the award, and then you can just exit to stage left. Frida Goodman Avery, represented by her son, Brian Avery.
Thank you. You were a great curler.
He said I'm a great curler. I was. You should see me now. Babe Goodman Gibson, represented by her niece, Patty Crocker. Goody Goodman Johnson, represented by her daughter, Leslie Bentley. Laura Piper Little, represented by her daughters Karen Gilfillian and Glenda Little. They're granddaughters. Well, you're looking really good, girls. Margaret Vopney Lloyd, represented by her daughter Danelda Campbell. Another way too. Wait. Lillian Can Lockwood, represented by her daughter Valerie Budd. Do you guys need her back? Wait. No, you sure? Gladys Percy McDonald, represented by her daughter Lynn Esser. Alma Percy, represented by grandson Ron Johnston. Fanny Julius Robertson, represented by her daughter Heather Curick, grandson Robert Curick. Are you in the room? Okie doke. Gordon Little, who was the manager, represented by his grandson Gordon Little and his son Ken Little. George Percy, who is the president of the club, represented by his grandson, Bill Percy. Jimmy Goodman, who was the mascot, represented by his wife, Shirley Goodman. She's here. There she is. And finally, the coach, Mike Goodman, represented by his daughter, Marcia Bradley. And as Marcia comes up, she is wearing around her neck, Mike was also a hockey player. He won the 1920 Olympic gold medal for the Falcons hockey team. You will never see this again. You do want to check out her medal. The following team members are not represented here this evening, but we do want to pay homage to Lucy Bowdler, Dorothy Dudley, Gladys Grant, Willa McLean, Peggy McBride, May Partridge, Elsie Gower, Isabel Sparky Cameron, G. Edwards, Margaret Hodgins, Della Marshall, Marjorie Palmer, Olive Shea, the Secretary-Treasurer R. Taylor, and M. White. I'd now like to invite Ken Little, Leslie Bentley, and Don McDonald to receive the team award and to speak on behalf of the 1923 to 1928 Winnipeg Ramblers girls softball team.
Thank you, Kathy. We would like to thank the softball organization for asking the three of us to represent the 1923 to 1928 Ramblers. Leslie Bentley represents the Goodman family. There were 5 members of that family involved with the team, 3 players, 1 coach, and the bat boy. Don McDonald represents 3 members of the Percy family, 2 players, and the president of the organization. I represent 2 members of the Little family. My mother, Laura Piper Little, was the pitcher, and my father was the head coach. If it wasn't for the Ramblers, I probably wouldn't be here. They met as a Rambler, they courted as a Rambler, and they married as a Rambler. On behalf of the Rambler family, we would like to congratulate all 2010 inductees. We would also like to thank the selection committee and the board of directors for choosing this talented group of ladies from 1923-28 to elect them into the Softball Hall of Fame. And in particular, we would like to thank Mr. Allan Sharpe, who is himself being inducted tonight. Allan just worked tirelessly on behalf of the Ramblers in his research to allow us to stand here and accept the award this evening. I talked to Allan a half a dozen times. You don't have to talk to him too often, and you understand his enthusiasm for softball. He knew every member of the Ramblers and their families, and we just owe him a debt of gratitude. And we also congratulate him for his individual award this evening. Now I'd like to turn the microphone over to Leslie for a few minutes.
This is really a great honor. The Ramblers are a legend in our family because they were all just such great ball players. I wasn't born until several years after my mom and her 2 sisters stopped playing, and please tell me that's not obvious. So I can't give you any first-hand experiences, but I can tell you a little of what it's like growing up in the shadow of a Rambler. Winnipeg had been a hotbed of softball in those days. And Mom kept a scrapbook full of photos, press clippings, and statistics, which I really loved to pore over all the time. And I was always really impressed at how often they had their pictures in the paper, because I knew you had to be really important to have your picture in the paper. And news coverage was so good in those days, and as a result, they had a very large fan following. One of them was my mother's boss, and her sister, twin sister Babe, too. He'd come in about 4 o'clock on game days and say, well, I've got to go now. I've got to get home in time to eat and change clothes and get back for your game tonight, and he'd take off. One time I was in the doctor's office, and he saw me sitting there, and he introduced me to the whole waiting room, because this is Goodman's daughter, Babe, and blah, 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 blah. In 1990, Vince Lee wrote an article in the Free Press Weekly entitled Softball's Golden Era, and this was following the announcement that Manitoba was going to get the Softball Hall of Fame. He wrote about the early days of softball, which he had actually seen, and some of the possible inductees, etc. But he wrote about the early days of softball, and at the top of the list was the Women's Senior League, and he listed the bright stars, and over half of them were our Ramblers. Over 50 years after they were playing, they were still making the papers, and that's really impressive. Did I mention that our Ramblers had a large following? They still have a large following. Yay, Ramblers!
Oh, we did our job. Well, as you can see, they let the junior do the follow-up. Most important of all, this particular commemorative plaque for the Ramblers, as a committee of 3 representing all the Rambler families, it would be our honor if this, through the committee, would be placed in the Baseball Hall of Fame. Thank you very much, and Allan, thank you for history. Okay.
Thank you very much. Our first individual inductee had an illustrious softball career covering the span of years from 1945 to 1954. The first team that Ben Adelman played with was the Winnipeg Linen team. On the diamond, third base, and surrounding area became his domain. Ben was almost flawless at fielding, and unlike today's players with their big gloves, he did it all barehanded. Current Hall of Famers Cam Bouchard and Tom Town say it was almost impossible to hit the ball past Ben. He led the Crosstown Electric Orioles in 1947, the Whirlaways in 1948, and then the Shore and Sons Sashman team in 1949 to the 20th Century League Championship. The Sashman team then went on to capture the Manitoba Senior A Championships. Ben found a home with the Legion 141 team in 1952 and played with them for the following 2 seasons. In the Winnipeg Softball News of the 1950s, several articles also made note of Ben's prowess with the Willow, batting 4th or 5th in the Legion lineup. Doubles or triples were the norm. In 1952, it was his bat that drove in the winning runs to defeat Edmonton in the second game of the Western Canadian Finals. With Ben anchoring the team at third base, Legion 141 went on to win the Winnipeg and Manitoba Senior A Championships the following 2 years. Ben passed away in 2000. Ben's nephew, Sladen Adelman, is here tonight to accept his father's award. Sladen?
Thank you. Unfortunately, Ben's daughters, Bonnie and Sherry, are unable to be here this evening, but the family wishes to express its deep appreciation for the consideration that the nominating committee has bestowed upon Ben and his memory. Ironically, if Ben were here today, he'd be most embarrassed by all of this pomp and ceremony. He was quite humble about his playing abilities. As a matter of fact, he never talked about it, and unfortunately, I was too young to ever see it myself, as he retired while I was still very young. And the way that I learned about his prowess was certainly not from Ben, because he wouldn't say much about it. If I asked him, he might grunt and say, well, yeah, I guess so. But it was a sport to him. He loved it and he played it. But I really learned about Ben's prowess through meetings with other individuals. It would usually go like this: Adelman, are you related to Ben Adelman? And I'd say proudly, I certainly am. and they would go on a long dissertation talking about Ben's prowess and how great a baseball player he really was. His huge hands, as they talked about this evening, his thick eyeglasses that made you wonder how he could see anything, and the fact that he played third base and nothing seemed to get by him. They also talked about his batting ability. Well, Ben was a very big man in stature. He wasn't blessed with blistering speed, but then again, he really didn't need it from what I heard because he hit the ball so far on a continuous basis. My favorite story, I think, about Ben seems to tell it all if you knew his character. It goes like this. It relates to the king in his court, the great Charlie Fainer, or Eddie Fainer, excuse me. It seems that when Eddie would come to town, Ben had the privilege of playing him on a number of occasions and was one of the few Manitobans who actually was able to hit occasionally off of Eddie's pitching. It seems that, according to my brother, who had an opportunity to observe Ben bat, that on one occasion Eddie came to town and he was talking to Ben, and he warned Ben. He said, you know, Ben, first time you come up to bat, I'm going to be getting down on my knees to pitch to you. And this was something that Eddie would do frequently. And apparently his pitching was just so good that nobody could touch it in any event. Benny, if you knew Ben, he turned around and looked at him and he said, you know, Eddie, you're going to get down on your knees to pitch. I'm going to get down on my knees to bat. Well, Eddie looked at him. Ben came to the plate for the first time. Eddie got down on his knees. Benny smiled, got down on his knees. Well, I think Eddie didn't take too kindly to this. He blew a fastball on the inside corner of the plate, and Benny ended up on his back hind, got up laughing, and then he said, well, I guess I made my point, but I think Eddie made a bigger one and a harder one, so I think I'll stand for the rest of the duration. In any event, I asked my brother after this, did Uncle Ben get a hit? And my brother said, you know, I just don't recall now. It's so long ago, but I wouldn't be surprised if he did. Again, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the nominating committee on behalf of the family for bestowing this wonderful honor on Ben, and it is much appreciated. Thank you.
Our first all-around inductee this evening was a young lad from Holland by the name of Wayne Deschouwer. At the age of 13, Wayne joined the Minneapolis Blues, where his love of the game had its roots. Through his years with the Minneapolis Blues, Wayne developed his skills as a catcher. He played in and won 9 South Central Fastball League championships, as well as numerous provincials. He won 3 Western Canadian Championship medals, gold with the Gladstone Whips, silver with Sanders, and bronze with the Minto Mustangs. As many players before him, Wayne also turned his attention to coaching. He is a fully certified Level 3 coach who believes in teaching the skills of the game along with teamwork and sportsmanship. Starting at the age of 18, Wayne progressed from coaching teams at the youth level to junior and senior men and to midget and junior women. His teams have been competitive at Western Canadian and national championships. Softball Manitoba recognized Wayne's contribution to the sport of softball when they presented him with the Leo Bouchard Award in 1993 and again in 1999. At some point, Wayne decided to join the third team on the diamond. He umpired his first meaningful game at the age of 16. In 2006, Wayne was recognized with his complete Level 4 official status. In total, he has officiated at 3 national championships and 4 Western Canadian championships. Beside being on Team Blue on the diamond, he joined the Umpire Development Committee and then moved up to serve as Deputy Umpire-in-Chief for the province. He has been a clinician and an Umpire-in-Chief for provincial and Western Canadian championships. Wayne is proud of the fact that in 38 years of umpiring, he has never had to eject a player or a coach. His administrative abilities were further demonstrated as he's been the president of the Smitty Softball Organization for the past 7 years, served as GM and VP of Hockey Operations with the Charleswood Hawks, and currently is president of the Tiger Hills Hockey Association. Wayne says about his career in softball that the biggest and most important reward attained through softball has to have been the people that he's come in contact with, not only in almost every town in Manitoba, but in every province of the country. It has forged friendships that have endured over 4 decades. Please welcome Wayne Deschouwer into the Hall of Fame in the all-around category.
Thanks, Kathy. Just for the record, I want to make sure you all know I'm being inducted in the all-around category and not the round category. Since the January announcement, whoa, I'm an umpire. I better, you guys didn't expect an umpire to be up here that could see, did you? Oh, that's better. Since the January announcement, many people have called or emailed me to congratulate me. My response has simply been that I'm living proof that if you have a great biographer, and I had 2, Evelyn Holinsky and Joanne Hodgkinson, anything is possible. To all of tonight's inductees, I congratulate you on your wonderful achievement. To the Black Knights, Thursday, July 1st, 1971, Morden, Manitoba, Diamond number 3, 10:30 a.m. Minneapolis Blues 2, defending Canadian senior men's champion Black Knights 1. You guys were fastball icons. Everyone knew of the Black Knights. We were just in awe to be on the same diamond. As I recall, you may have taken us country boys a little lightly. Most of you probably didn't even remember the game, but for us guys playing for Minneapolis, it was a definite highlight of our season. My wife can't figure out how I can remember every little detail of a game played 39 years ago, but when she sends me to the store for bread and milk, I can only manage to come home with one of the items. To be recognized for doing something you enjoy is icing on the cake. The way I see it, all I have done is give a little back to the sport that has done me so much. During my 42 years of involvement with softball, my travels have taken me to 7 provinces and 5 states. In Manitoba, I've been on diamonds from Boissevain to Vida to Cross Lake to Lac Rocher and most every other softball playing community in between. The game is also responsible for introducing me to something called a beer garden. Softball has provided me the opportunity to have played with and to have coached some of the province's elite players. Umpiring has been very rewarding, not only on the home front here in Manitoba, but also on the Western and national level. I was very fortunate to have been a member of 27 provincial championship teams and numerous Western Canadian medaling teams, and I'm also very proud to say that I was a member of the 1976 inaugural Summer Games gold medal team, the Minneapolis Blues. I can tell you that the town partied for 2 days. When I think about all the great players who played this game and never had an opportunity to even participate in a championship game, it really hits home how blessed I really have been. The game is also responsible for my many nicknames: Wiener, Fat Cat, Chowie or Chow. In my day, 2008, 2009, I ran out everything. Even a walk would be handled like I was beating out an infield hit. Now, we're not talking the speed of lightning here, but I was quick. I could run. I never got on base much, so I wanted to be standing on first before the umpire changed his call. It impressed the hell out of my Portage Dodger teammates, so much in fact that Grant Skinner thought my actions on the ball field were similar to a guy playing with the Cincinnati Reds. By the name of, you guessed it, Pete Rose. That's right, Charlie Hustle. Since Pete already had that moniker, Grant anoints me with the handle Chowie Hustle, and the rest, as they say, is history. The biggest single reward for me has been the opportunity to meet so many great and wonderful people and to make numerous new acquaintances. I would like to thank the people that have come out to support me tonight, my Minneapolis Blues teammates, and don't worry, your antics when you were playing with me are safe. The Blue Crew, the umpires that are out tonight, reminder, the fun begins Monday night, so get those shoes signed. The gang from Smitty's, 17 years and counting. Looking back, I wonder if it was a coincidence that my first team was called Obsession. My Winter family, the Charleswood Hawks. It's summer, and we're still hanging out together. Gotta love it. To the Gladstone Whips, it was one hell of a run. For 20 years, we climbed the ranks of midget to junior to intermediate to senior. There's no question you are champions of the diamond. Your record is proof of that. To my friends, glad you are here because you're now evidence and proof that I do have friends outside of sport. To my family, and this includes all my beloved outlaws, I am sorry for the missed birthdays, camping trips, family reunions, picnics, and weddings. Missed my brother's wedding, if you can believe that one. He thinks I still owe him a present, and I think he still owes me supper. I also now know that the person responsible for selecting the date for Mother's and Father's Day was not a ball player. I missed a few of those too. Once again, my apologies. You are all very near and dear to me. To my wife, Clemence, thanks for letting me stay a kid. In 37 years, you never once complained or denied me the opportunity to follow my passion. I love you. Everyone, thanks for coming, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your evening.
Our next induction will also be in the athlete category. In 1922, Deleau was born and raised in Deleau, Manitoba. The town had been named Deleau by the CPR Railroad in honor of the land they had received from Ab's parents. Ab started playing ball as soon as he entered school. He loved every game, but no game was ever played just for fun. Many umpires found out just how serious Ab was about the outcome of a game. In fact, there were a few games that umps thought Ab would be better off watching from the sidelines. Throughout his career, mainly as a second baseman, Ab was known as an excellent hitter and an exceptional base runner. It was always the goal of the opposing team to throw him out, but it very seldom happened. Ab was instrumental in organizing the Deleau Roughies fastball team, and it was here that he had the pleasure of playing alongside his son, Bob. Fans could be overheard asking who the old man was, playing with the kids. When this team folded, he started playing senior slow pitch with the Southwest Silver Bullets, later to become the Manitoba Coyotes. During the winter, Ab would travel south and continue to play ball. While being a snowbird, Ab won 5 World Senior Series championship rings, 1 for each of his 4 grandchildren, or his children rather, and 1 for his own mantle. Hanging up his glove at the age of 83, he still loves the game, and he is still not afraid to tell the umpires what's on his mind. I would like to ask Ab Deleau to come forward and tell us what's on his mind.
Well, I should be on the ball diamond instead of here, but where will I start? Hey, any farmers around today? I suppose you got the day off, have you? Next week will be nice. You still don't work. You just drive the tractor, sit in here, and go to sleep. How true. Okay. Thank you to all our family and friends to coming today. Thanks to Andy and the rest of the gang for wanting me in. Wow. Who wrote this now? What an honor for the organization to select me to the Hall of Fame. Thanks again, everyone. Hey, I want to say 3 persons I want to introduce. George Little, my friend over here. I played ball with him for years down in South Arizona. Thanks, George. Wonderful man. And my mother, Clarice. It's her birthday today. Where is she? She's trying to catch up to me, but I'm still a year older than she is. Not coming to see me? And there's Linda Van Dale, Manitoba Senior Ladies Champion. She's here tonight. Stand up, Linda. Well, I was never good at speaking, but that's it. Thank you.
That may have been the best speech I've ever heard. It's pretty quick with the hug, too.
Easy. I can still run.
I'm more worried about running from you. Our first builder to be inducted tonight did not become involved in the sport of softball until she was in her early 20s. For over 30 years, Eva Peters left her mark on the game of softball. Playing with the St. Boniface Royalettes, Eva won numerous MVP pitching awards at the league, provincial, and regional levels. She also competed in 2 national championships. However, it is her role as a pioneer and trailblazer for female umpires that we recognize her here tonight. A 1990 Free Press article by Jim Timlick stated that when she started umping 16 years ago, being a woman umpire was as lonely as being a shipwrecked sailor on a deserted island. Umpiring crews at that time were predominantly male, but as fellow umpire Don Middleton stated, she was a first-class official who, because of her strong commitment to excellence, was able to successfully deal with both the subtle and sometimes not so subtle gender issues of our society and just do the job that needed to be done. Perhaps that's why she portrayed a tough outside as an umpire, but for those who really knew her, she was also a very sensitive person. Eva was the first Manitoban female to earn her Level 4 classification. From 1980 to 1984, Eva worked at the executive level with the officials division. She was a keen student of the game and never failed to pass on this bit of advice to her fellow officials. Every game, whether it involved children or adults, was important to those playing and deserved the same respect and effort. In a minor boys game, Eva was umpiring and a young catcher came to the plate. She noticed he was wearing a jock, but on the outside of his uniform. It's probably my son. Eva smiled and put her arm around him and walked with him slowly back to the dugout while quietly talking to him. No one on the field or in the stands noticed what happened. Eva acted as if nothing had happened, went on to call the game, and the little guy didn't have any embarrassment. A great example of Eva caring for and respecting those that she umpired. 1990, Eva had the honor of being the first female umpire at the Junior Women's National Championship, with her final assignment being behind the plate in the semifinals. At the 1992 Senior Women's Nationals, she was given home plate for the gold medal game. A former catcher for Canada's women's national team, Juanita Clayton, remembers this about Eva. She was the ultimate professional, and she knew how to take control of the game so that the players on both teams only had to think about playing. Throughout her career, Eva umpired at the league, provincial, regional, and national levels, from minors to seniors. Eva passed away in December of 2007. Tonight, we induct Eva into the Builder category. Would you please welcome Trevor Denisick, Eva's godson, to accept her award.
Good evening. First off, I'd like to thank the selection committee for recognizing Eva's achievements in the game of softball and inducting her into the Hall of Fame. I know she would be humbled, but so honored at the same time. Softball was her passion. For anyone here who did not know Eva, as a friend, umpire, or player, I am sorry that you missed out on that opportunity. Our only regret today is that Eva is not here in person, but we know she is in spirit. So dear Eva, we are all so very proud of you. Thank you.
Our next individual comes from the rural community of Crystal City and will be inducted into the all-around category. For over 50 years, Allan Sharpe has been involved in sport as an athlete, as a coach, as a builder, administrator, and as a supporter. As in most small communities, Allan participated in most sports, but his first passion was playing shortstop and batting in either fastball or baseball. Playing with the local baseball team, Allan recalls having to use the tractor to get to practices. He also related that during the late 1950s, at home games, the stores closed and the fieldwork stopped. For the away games, a caravan of 30 to 40 cars followed the team. He came to Winnipeg in 1961 and joined the Winnipeg Fire Department. The following year, he joined and played shortstop for the powerhouse Keywheel Seals softball team. In 1971, he left the Seals and went on to play with the Black Knights as an outfielder. In the late 1970s and mid-1980s, Allan returned to his baseball roots and coached. In addition, Allan worked at the executive level with Manitoba Baseball. It was here that Allan developed and expanded his background in finances and fundraising, two areas that he has continued to utilize as a volunteer with the Manitoba Softball Hall of Fame. After serving 35 years with the fire department and having slowed down a bit, Allan decided to try his hand at playing competitive slow pitch. Those of you who played with Allan at that time may remember not being the best of friends for him, because after playing for 20 plus years of fastball habits become ingrained. In Allan's first game of slow pitch, he hit a base hit, made it safely to first base, gets ready for the next pitch, and as soon as the ball leaves the pitcher's hands, he's running, thinking to steal. Well, if you're not expecting you're out, you haven't played slow pitch. Nobody bothered to tell him that the rules are somewhat different. In 2001, his first year of slow pitch, he played with Portage in the World AAA Tournament and was chosen as All-Star shortstop. In 2005, in his role as player coach, he led the Winnipeg South 60-plus team to the Western Canadian Championships. From 2002 to the present, Allan has volunteered and continues to volunteer his time, energy, and expertise with the Manitoba Softball of Fame. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Allan Sharpe to receive his award and be inducted in the all-around category.
Our honored guests, ladies and gentlemen, thank you to the Manitoba Softball Hall of Fame for this honor given me tonight. I am involved with the Hall of Fame in many capacities over the past several years, and be honored for doing something I find so much fun is definitely special. Congratulations to each of the 2010 inductees and to the former inductees that are in attendance tonight. Two coaches influenced me and began my journey to this point were Earl Tom in Crystal City and Claude Gagnon in Winnipeg. Earl organized a ball team, mostly of teens, enters into the senior league, and somehow convinced us that the best time to practice was 9 o'clock Sunday morning. He must have done something right, because I'm back playing recreation ball today. Claude's practice time was 9 a.m. Saturday mornings, and if you didn't hustle or late to practice, the next Saturday there would be 6 guys standing in your spot trying out for the team. I was so fortunate to play in 3 teams in Winnipeg with outstanding ball players, though these teams being the Keywell Seals, the Black Knights, and the St. Anne Saints. I have to applaud Kent Morgan for his vision as a founder of the Manitoba Softball Hall of Fame and Museum. Kent talked me into helping out with some research several years ago, and for some reason it seems to get more every year. I've heard many fascinating stories from terrific ball players and their families. Once again, I extend my appreciation for this honor, and thanks to my family for sharing this special evening with me.
And now for our final inductee in this first half. Through his outstanding softball career, was mainly played here in Manitoba, our next inductee was born in Coaldale, Alberta. While attending school in the 40s, Ernie Peters saw a windmill pitcher and his interest was born. In 1951, Ernie moved to Steinbach and continued his pitching with the Southeast Mennonite Church team. Moving to Winnipeg in 1957, Ernie played church and industrial league ball. He was unanimously voted to the All-Star team numerous times while playing industrial league. His senior softball career began when Ernie joined the Molson Canadiens in 1966. Ernie was one of the few pitchers who had the uncanny ability to make the fastball rise quickly before the plate instead of a gradual rise, and the drop ball was the same, falling off the table in front of the plate. With his strong performance, the Canadiens won the Winnipeg and Manitoba Senior Championships. The Free Press noted at the time that Ernie Peters was one of the 2 best pitchers in the entire city. Switching to the Black Knights in 1968, the team went on to win the Intermediate A Fastball Championship. The Knights, with Ernie pitching, moved to the Senior League in 1969, dethroning the Molson Canadiens. Ernie and his fellow Knights represented Manitoba at the Canadian Nationals in 1970 and 1971. Personally, Ernie considers the 1-0 win over K. Olson of Saskatoon in 1971 to be his career game. He pitched 13 scoreless innings. Would you please welcome Ernie Peters, an outstanding pitcher, as he comes forward to accept his award and be inducted into the Softball Hall of Fame.
As I walked in the room, I met 2 of my catchers that I played with. One was Harry Bickert, and one was Bernie Neufeld. And in those days, there was always signals, because if you threw the rise ball and they gave you a drop, they were going to have their head taken off. So the rise ball was always a 1 finger. Well, I can guarantee you, if you're driving car today and you see the 1 finger, the only thing that's going to rise is your temper. In any case, I have a few things I'd like to say, and I hope that it'll be interesting for everyone here. When I was 7 years old, I attended a rural school in Gem, Alberta. When I was 7 years old, I attended this school. A visiting fastball team played our high school team. The visiting team had a windmill pitcher, and I'd never seen that before, and I told myself, this is what I wanted to do. Much to the chagrin of my parents and utter dismay of my 6 older sisters, I proceeded to use our garage door at home as our backstop. I tell you, that garage door took an awful beating. At age 9, I was playing on the 12 and under team, and I was able to play fastball in 5 different decades. In 1951, as has already been said, we moved to Manitoba, where I played on school teams. After graduation from Steinbach High School, I played on church teams and in the Cloverleaf League. In 1966, I joined Molson Canadiens in the Senior League. It was not long before my teammate Ted Lanyon gave me 2 nicknames. I was either called Popsicle Pete or Pastor Peters. I never thought he was making fun of me. I thought this was his way of showing respect for my Christian way of life that I had committed to many years before. Unfortunately, Ted passed away 2 years ago in May. That Molson team was the most talented team I ever played for. In October 1966, I was transferred to Toronto and did not play during the 1967 season. The big reason, I had a tremendously sore arm. I transferred back to Winnipeg in June 1968. Molson's had their roster set. The Black Knights were kind enough to invite me to join their team. In 1968, we were Industrial League champions. And in 1969, we joined the Senior League and were able to defeat Molson's for the championship. The Black Knights team had the most desire to win of any team I ever played for. I have a few thank yous. I would like to thank the following people for sharing this celebration with me. My daughter Valerie, who came all the way from Quebec City. My son Phil, for coming all the way from Burlington. My son Daryl and wife Shirley, for coming all the way from Elmwood. I would like to thank my extended family and dear friends for accepting my invitation to attend. Thank you very much. I would also like to thank the people who nominated me and for the Hall of Fame committee who accepted this nomination. I'm deeply humbled. Lastly, I would like to thank my wife Elfrida, who accompanied me to games in 4 of the 5 decades I played. We could not afford accommodation at our out-of-the-city tournaments. We took our tent, and with 2 small children, and yes, 1 in diapers, made the best of it. I thank her for her diligence in keeping a scrapbook with all the newspaper clippings. Without that, I couldn't remember what I had done. She is my true love, and she is my true hero. Thank you.
Okay, all you husbands out here, that's how it's done. Those are the women clapping, by the way. Well, that brings to close the first part of our program. It's a great opportunity to refresh your drink, your last opportunity to buy tickets for the silent auction. And if I could now gather our second half inductees, which includes Bobbi Janaway, Faye Finch, Ken King, Ross MacIver, and the members of the Beavers Slow Pitch Club, as well as the members of the Black Knights, to assemble to my right. We will get underway as soon as we're all together. Our second team to be inducted this evening has been a success story for over 25 years. The Beavers Slow Pitch Club began their winning ways in 1975 when they joined the Greenbrier Blooper Ball League, the early version of slow pitch. The team was formed with a few experienced ball players and a lot of good athletes who learned the game as they went along. In 1980, the Beavers joined the Winnipeg Men's Slow Pitch League. Their provincial achievements led to the Beavers representing Manitoba at 6 consecutive senior men's Canadian championships. The time from 1987 to 1992 was considered their most successful period. Those who know the Beavers will also know that they are a very frugal group. Some would call that cheap. And it has been related that the Beavers didn't always book rooms for the entire length of a tournament and would often find an empty warehouse in which to sleep. In fact, at the Moncton, New Brunswick Championships, the Beavers had checked out of their hotel and after being caught in a torrential downpour in the early morning hours, spent the rest of the night sleeping in the Moncton Herald building, which was being remodeled at the time. How they got in, we'll never know. Although a national title was not in the cards for the Beavers, no team in Manitoba could dethrone them as provincial champions. Their amazing record of 170 games won, 21 games lost, and 2 ties in competition within Manitoba still stands. The Beavers are truly a slow pitch dynasty. And now to meet the team members. As each individual is announced, we'd ask that you come forward and receive your award. Ted Antoniuk. We're going to have them go, you have to come across the stage. This is your big moment. And you're going to have to pose for a while. You have I see that the team hasn't changed. There were always a lot of women. And there still are. Wally Antoniuk. Frank Bajarski. Jan Bouillon. Randy Bullard. Hi. Bob Chain. Tony Caputo. Dave Despens. Bill Finch. Gary Gray. Bill Hasyuk. It's Billy White Shoes.
White shoes.
He always was Billy White Shoes.
Red carpet here, man.
Chris Jankowski. Randy Ladobrook. Greg Meikle. John Moulton. Ron Phillips. Keith Prost. Dave Saulnier. and Rick Selowich. The following members were not represented here tonight and include Ward Flett, John St. Jean, Vic Neufeld, Brian Osadik, Mike Jerbinski, and Don Klim. And I'd now like to invite Bill Finch, the team's representative, to receive the team award and speak on behalf of the 1987 to 1992 Beavers Slow Pitch Club.
I've waited a long time for this. Usually I come up, I say congratulations to everybody. I'm not going to speak because no one wants to listen to me, and I'm going to get out of here, but not today. First, I'd like to ask Kathy, who was at the press conference, how do you know the Beavers were sober?
These look different than usual.
Okay. First off, I would like to congratulate all the inductees tonight, and a big thanks to the Hall of Fame committee and the selection committee for recognizing our team. What an honor for all of us. Thank you very much. On an occasion like this, there's so many people to thank and so many stories to tell. You just don't know where to start or what to say. There are countless stories to tell on and off the field during this 6-year span. Obviously, our success on the field has what got us recognized and inducted tonight, but our team was much more than just results on the field. This group of 25 guys worked year-round in order to represent Winnipeg and Manitoba proudly, year after year, at the Canadian Championships. We were driven by pride. You know what, I'm probably going to stay composed and not get too emotional, but it is quite an emotional thing for me and all the boys tonight. During our 6-year run, we traveled from Newfoundland to BC twice, with stops in Quebec, New Brunswick, and Alberta along the way. For young guys between the ages of 25 and 30, the financial commitment and the time off work was always a challenge, but the excitement of traveling and representing our province far outweighed the consequences of not going. I'd like to provide a quick history of the Beavers, and I think Kathy did that in the induction, but I'd like to do that as well. We were founded in 1975, and we were named by Wayne Gluding and one of our own teammates, original Beaver, Billy Ashuk. They came up with the name Beavers, and it's been pretty famous ever since. We played in the Brier Blooper Ball League, which was run by Commissioner Glenn Salter and sponsored by the Greenbrier Hotel owner, Steve Torbiak. And the umpire-in-chief out there was a Hall of Famer, Pico Daptel, if anybody knows him out there. This was the forerunner of slow pitch, and a large mat was used for a plate. You could throw the ball as high as you liked with no restrictions. Beavers were very successful in this league. They won 5 consecutive, and then they moved on to bigger and better things. They joined the Winnipeg Men's Slow Pitch League, co-founded by Kent Morgan, who I'm sure you all know, in 1980. The league took off with as many as 120 teams participating in its peak years. The Beavers were always on top of the league, and then the Beavers progressed the next step and entered the provincials, where they represented Manitoba and won from 1981 to 86. That leads us to our current edition of this group that's being honored tonight. While the Beavers were still successful in 87, we were in transition. The older players were leaving, and an injection of youth was necessary. The pressure of winning and carrying on in the footsteps of our predecessors was huge. The core of the team was remaining with Shoes and Bud, Ozzie, TC, Selly, and Gus, but we would be losing Slinger and Johnny, TA, Mike, and Monty. Those were substantial losses. The recruiting began. Monty, always the team player, replaced himself with Meeks. That was a welcome addition, as not only could Meeks play, but he brought a welcome sponsorship from Petro-Canada with him. Thank you, Monty and Meeks. We then looked to the west end and we picked up Ward, Gary, and Sixer, and to the north end for Jank and Dusty. With all these new players, we needed some place to mesh, bond, and see what we had. What better place than the Can-Am tournament in Fargo? At that time, the season was over, provincials were done, and we were back home from the Canadians. This worked out well, and we won the Can-Am 3 years in a row. Over the next 4 years, very few player personnels happened. As players left, they were replaced. Jose, Bouge, Vic, Hawk, Bossman, Shamu, all welcome additions. TC, Ward, Gary, and Meeks, they moved on. We're especially sorry to see you go, Meeks. Finances were always a concern with this team. During our time, provincials were held in July and nationals were in August. This left very little time for fundraising. The necessity of funds brought out all kinds of creativity on our part. On our first trip to Newfoundland, we approached the MSA for assistance to get us to Newfoundland. The association provided us with the necessary funding, but not before every individual traveling signed their life away, guaranteeing repayment to the association. I guess they're a little leery of giving thousands of dollars to a bunch of young guys possibly never to be seen again. The Beavers and all of Slow Pitch owe a huge thank you to Dave St. Onge, MSA director at that time, who fought to have Slow Pitch recognized and funded through the MSA. Thank you very much, Dave. After this experience, we made a conscious team decision to fundraise year-round in anticipation of traveling. Some of our fundraising events included hosting highly successful slow pitch and sponge hockey tournaments, Grey Cup and Super Bowl tickets, stuff in envelopes, hockey pools, and numerous sponsorships from local establishments. One of these sponsorships was from the Palomino Club. I see where they're celebrating 22 years of success this year. I think the Beavers had a lot to do with their initial success at the Palomino Club. It was our meeting place of choice over the years, and they responded for providing us with money and gold cards. Well, the money was nice. The gold cards were very special. The Palomino recouped their cash donation very quickly after a quick couple of team meetings. Every year that we traveled, there were sure to be stories on or off the field that would go down in the annals of Beaver history forever. Usually, when teams gather to reminisce about old times, as we did last night, stories seem to be embellished and made just a little bit better than what they originally were when they took place. That's not the case with us. In fact, we have to downplay the stories just to be able to tell them to our wives and girlfriends now. I can mention little snippets, and I'm sure the team will have vivid recollections of what took place. For example, Marystown, Newfoundland, meet and greet, kissing the cod, and Bud from Manitoba. Fishing on the Atlantic and out fishing the boys from BC, Bill Mayo, and the bike. Saint-Azine, Quebec, leaving home, having home plate buried and the field altered, and losing Selly in Montreal. Prince George, we walked into the bar and they actually had signs that said, "Check the knives and guns at the bar." What a place that was. And watching Ozzy do the umpire on stage, priceless. In Moncton, well, thanks, Kathy. Yeah, you guys all heard that one. No hotel rooms, finding accommodations in the pouring rain. But also we recruited our own transportation, had our own cab driver for the whole week. He was a hit. We went to White Rock. More cheap accommodations. Scooting from the Newton, our kitchenette, and the cooks on the team. 3 hotels in 3 days. And a certain team member getting sick on the bus and on his way to the game. And Simply Guys in Medicine Hat. Stephen Richer, Quebec, and the game of our lives, eh, guys? Every year we would travel to the Nationals with high expectations, fully intent on winning, only to return home humbled. As good as we were in Manitoba, we could never carry that success over to the Nationals. Every year that we went away, we came back home having learned something new and introduced it back to Manitoba. I believe we were respected and were definitely well known by our opposition across Canada. Teams would stop and listen to our rally cry before games and ask us to perform it in beer gardens and bars after games. Most of our players were all well known by their nicknames, mostly because no one knew their real names. And the Beavers, Winnipeg, and Manitoba were well known and respected across Canada. Back home, we couldn't wait to win and go back to compete again. Before John Bloomberg Complex was built, we played on open fields and schoolyards. After playing at the Nationals with fences, we asked for and received permission from the MSA to install fences for our provincials. For the next few years, the Beavers team would install fences at Old X or East St. Paul, or we would play at Beausejour where there were fences. This just showed some of the passion the team had for the game and for playing it. In league play, the Winnipeg Men's Slow Pitch League thought it would be a real good idea if each team had maybe an umpire that was certified on the team. The Beavers sent half a team. I apologize to some of the umpires out there today that I see. Nice to see Donnie Middleton, Keith King, Terry Wallowik, Jerry Howard, because you guys know we had a team full of umpires on that team that had the whole field covered from left to right field and first to third. We never missed a call. It seemed every year a new team was formed to try and knock us off. Club Taboo, Bullwinkles, Bullets, they all came and went, took their best shot and folded. The regulars, Batman, Broncos, Portage Club West, St. Adolphe, and the Splinsky brothers, they're always our constant competition. I have a special mention to the St. Norbert Bears, who were our chief rivals throughout this era. They provided us with the competition needed to keep us sharp. Me and my teammates have the utmost respect for the Bears, who pushed us to the limit year after year. This group of players from 87 to 92 went through a transition of the slow pitch game. We went from schoolyards, open fields, and wooden bats, and Spalding 177s, the Rock, to 300-foot fences, aluminum bats, and mush balls. I remember going halfers with shoes, buying our first aluminum bat for $40. That's sure changed. We went from pitchers who moved forward towards home plate for defense to retreating backwards, and we went from 4-man outfields to 5-man infields. We were part of an ever-changing game. I'd like to share one story with the audience that took place tonight. It took place at the Canadian Championships at Medicine Hat in 1992. As I mentioned earlier, we always expected to win. We would be competitive. We'd end up finishing around 500. We always had trouble with Ontario and Quebec, and we split with the rest of the provinces. The previous year, in 1991, in White Rock, BC, Quebec administered one of the most humiliating losses ever suffered by the Beavers in our illustrious history. Quebec did not try to run it up that day. We just didn't have it. Quebec wound up winning the Canadian Championship that year. We fast forward now to Medicine Hat in 1992. We are playing Quebec, and I am taking the pregame toss with Stephen Richer from the Montreal Canadiens, who also was a fairly decent slow pitch player. When we take the coin toss, Quebec wins the toss, and Richer says, "We'll take bats. We want to hit 5 times today." I came back to the bench, and I let the boys know about the conversation. Not much was said at the time. Quebec did not start their first team, but as the game progressed, all of the regulars reappeared in the lineup. The game was close, with Quebec leading throughout the game. There was a buzz about the ballpark, and the stands were filling up. People were hanging around the first and third base lines. As we're getting close, in the bottom of the 6th, we had a big rally and took the lead over Quebec. In the top of the 7th, Quebec could not come back, and when the third out was caught out in right field, the stands exploded. We didn't need the bat in the bottom of the 7th. We didn't get 7 at-bats. It was probably one of the biggest upsets ever in Canadian Championship history. As this was only round-robin play, our team showed no emotion. We jogged in from the field, lined up for handshakes, and went to the dugout to put our gear away. Silence. No one said a word. We quietly walked out of the dugout, bursting with pride. We had gained the respect of the slow pitch community. It was a great moment for the entire team, but for Shoes, Bud, Ozzy, Selly, Gus, Casper, Jank, Dusty, Boss, and Booge, all the guys who played for years, it was very, very special. We had gained the stamp of approval and respect of our peers. Just like tonight, we have received the stamp of approval and respect for our sport from the community of the softball world of Manitoba. It is a proud moment for all of us, and we thank you for the recognition. Before I close, I'd like to call on all of my teammates for your enjoyment listening to perform for the audience our fight song that is recognized around Manitoba and throughout Canada. Shoes, if you could lead the team. Boys. Thank you, and good night. Enjoy the rest of the evening.
It is now time to introduce our third and final team, the 1967 to 1972 Black Knights Fastball team. The history behind the Black Knights goes as far back as 1946. That year, several young men of German heritage, using the First Mennonite Church as a focal point, decided to form a fastball team and enter the Mercantile League. Over the ensuing years, playing in numerous leagues, veterans were replaced by rookie players, many of whom came to Winnipeg from small southern Manitoba communities. The Black Knights team was constantly changing, but the team still revolved around the church youth. During the early years, the coaches would yell out their instructions in Low German instead of flashing signals, thus preventing their opponents from picking up their signs. However, in 1968, this all changed as the first non-German player not connected with the church joined the Black Knights. That same year, the team began to build towards a serious challenge for the Manitoba Senior Fastball title. They soon became the dominant force in Manitoba men's fastball. From 1967 to 1972, the Knights were provincial champions 5 out of 6 years. In 1969, perennial senior league and provincial champions, the Molson Canadians, were defeated by the Knights. The Black Knights went on to win the Manitoba Senior Provincials in 1970, 1971, and 1972. They then represented the province at the Canadian Championships in each of those years. Many of these Black Knights later went on to play with the Colonels. However, the name Black Knights refused to die. Once again, the church youth reclaimed the uniforms, and the saga of the Black Knights continued. Now, ladies and gentlemen, let's meet the members of the 1967 to 1972 Black Knights. Again, as each individual's name is announced, we'd ask the player or their representative to come forward for your award. Starting with Barry Braun. Coach Harry Buchert. Congratulations. Ed Dirksen. Brian Dick. Coach Peter Dick. Rudy Angbrick. Ralph Enns. Coach Jim Friesen. Hello. Alphonse Gavarot, represented by his grandson, also Alphonse Gavarot. And he's going to say a few words. He's not going to say a few words. I can scare them at any age I can. Ed Gilroy. John Hamm, represented by his daughter, Deborah Sokowski. And his son, John. Brian Kalinowski, who is the bat boy, represented by his wife, Debbie Punton. Oh, go back and get your award. Well, we have someone with the box for the award. At a minimum, you get a box. John Kalinowski. Bernie Neufeld. A little back cover. The amazingly talented singer Rick Neufeld. Werner Pauls. Ernie Peters. It's quite the night.
Next year, it's your job, I take it.
He wants my job next year. Ken Peters. Rick Peters. Coach Art Penner. Lloyd Penner. Trainer Don Rowland. Allan Sharpe.
Brian Taser's going to take Ron Taser's.
Okie doke. Brian Taves, who's also accepting Ron Taves Award. He was here earlier, but it is his son's social this evening. Hey, see ya. Reg Wall. And John Weens, represented by his son, Andrew Weens. Not in attendance tonight, but should be noted, include Larry Wojtowicz, Cliff Dick, Buzz Lamond, Grant Skinner, and Ron Taylor. I'd now like to invite Lloyd Penner, the team's representative, to receive the team award and speak on behalf of the 1967 to 1972 Black Knights fastball team.
I crossed a few paragraphs off so we could be a little shorter. On behalf of all members of the Black Knights softball team, I am honored to accept this award on their behalf and would like to thank the Hall of Fame committee for considering and recommending the Black Knights team for induction into the Manitoba Softball Hall of Fame. It is a great honor and career highlight for each and every member of the Knights team to be inducted into the Hall of Fame. As the only member to have played on the team all 6 years, I have had the privilege of getting to know all the characters during that time, and there were a number of them. I would like to thank Peter Dick for his part in organizing the team in the early years, and Harry Buchert for playing a large role in the later years by organizing, playing, coaching, and adding the pieces that allowed the team to improve and grow. As players came and went, some things remained common. We always had fun whether we won or lost, and we always required a good supply of sunflower seeds to fuel our efforts. I remember very vividly the 13-inning game against Saskatchewan that Ernie talked about as one of the most amazing pitching performances against two of the best pitchers the game has ever seen, Eugene McWillie and Peter Fraze. It was a privilege to be a part of that. I will try to mention a couple of humorous items without naming names. I remember those Sunflower Festival tournaments in Altona where we would usually end up winning. When they would not let us enter the softball tournament anymore, apparently we were too good, we would enter the baseball tournament. We had a number of players with some top-notch baseball pedigree, and the rest of us just faked it. After the tournament, we would pick up a case of brew, drive out of town a few miles to a muddy creek, and go swimming under a bridge. Of course, not very many of us had swimsuits along, and with ladies present, we had to make sure their eyes were turned and that we entered and exited the water under the bridge. I also remember an impromptu midnight bonding party on the Ball Diamond in Minot, North Dakota, with many of the team and their spouses participating. Nothing in particular was being celebrated other than a few drinks and the joy of spending time together. We were expecting to hear sirens at any time because of the noise complaints, but fortunately there were none. The cooperation on the team was illustrated when we took on the task of building the 8-foot-high wood fence that used to surround Charlie Krupp Stadium in order to raise money for the team. I believe we finished it the day before the Canadian Championship in which we were playing was to start. Talk about a good old Mennonite building bee. Fun was fun, but softball was serious. We always knew when to separate the two. We won many tournaments locally, interprovincially, and internationally, as well as the many Canadian Championship appearances. I am sure that each one of us feels very privileged to have had the good fortune of playing with so many talented players. The bonds and friendships that were formed on the teams will last a lifetime, and the times we spent together did much to mold our future lives. Thank you.
Thank you, Lloyd. Our next inductee is the second of two builders to be inducted this evening. In 1975, Ross MacIver started playing and coaching blooper ball while living in Thunder Bay. On his return to Winnipeg in 1992, Ross joined the Flashback 55-plus slow pitch team to compete in the Manitoba Society of Seniors Games. He continued to play and coach throughout the 2004 season. In 1993, he and two other league members were asked to locate more senior slow pitch competition and increase participation in the Manitoba Senior Slow Pitch Tournament League. Schmoozing bigwigs and hosting tournaments soon became a normal part of Ross's softball life. In 1995, he sold the Senior Softball World Championship, Inc. on holding its first ever world qualifier outside of the United States, giving birth to the annual Canadian Polar Bear Classic, right here in Winnipeg. Armed with letters from the Minister of Foreign Affairs, the Minister of Sport, and the Mayor, Ross made a successful bid to host the Senior Slow Pitch World Championships in 2000, the first time the tournament had been held outside the United States. This tournament attracted some 170 teams from Canada and the United States, and states from as far away as California and Hawaii. Much of the profits were returned to the John Bluebird Complex and to Softball Manitoba for the promotion of seniors 55-plus slow pitch. Due to Ross's persistence, Softball Manitoba created a provincial championship for the senior 55-plus teams. In 2004, he actively encouraged the Western Canadian Softball Association to host its first senior slow pitch 55-plus championship, which of course he hosted. In 2003, he sat on the United States Senior Softball Summit Committee. In 2004, he was awarded the City of Winnipeg's first ever Ambassador Award for Tourism in the Sports and Special Events category for bringing slow pitch tourists to Winnipeg. Softball Manitoba also recognized Ross by awarding him the Jim Adams Award as the Outstanding Administrator, Builder, or Executive Member. Tonight, because of his outstanding leadership and organizational ability, we are pleased to welcome Ross MacIver into the Hall of Fame in the building category.
I don't have a lot to say, and I know you're going to be glad about that. I did have a lot to say, actually, about the Polar Bear and all our volunteers, 900 of them, 36 executive members who periodically served on the committees, and a span of 17 years, and we're still operating. Today, instead of running tournaments, we subsidize the senior teams that are going out to major tournaments. In the program, it mentions quite a few of the names on the executive. There's a few that are missing, and they're here tonight. That's, where are we now? Brian McTaggart, our treasurer, and Gary Ohlenberger. And I'm remiss if not mentioning Bob Esri, because these three worked their butts off. we've got, well, I was going to, like I said, I was going to talk about this polar bear. But when you go in as a builder, they also call you a contributor. So I want to talk about something else. That's something I spent a lot of time on. The Carefree Getaway Flashback Slow Pitch team. Playing at 70 and graduating to 75 years of age. The slow pitch team, this team has participated in 6 world championships, medaling in 4. Bronze in 2002 in Salem, Oregon. Silver 2003 in Winnipeg. Gold, where else? 2004 Las Vegas. And gold 2008 in Phoenix, Arizona. As well, they've won the Softball Manitoba and SPN Provincial Championships, the Western Canada and the Canada Game Championships. These Manitoba players have won every competition available to them. They set standards for future generations. The crowning of the Carefree Getaway Flashback success can only be achieved by their eventual induction into Softball Manitoba's Hall of Fame. I have a couple of thanks here. First of all, to my wife for supporting my participation in the Canadian Polar Bear Classic, and then joining us as a secretary and as a player in the co-ed league. I also like to thank Senior Slow Pitch for the nomination, and the Hall of Fame Committee for their induction as a builder. It's a great honor. And like I said, I hope one day, soon, because seniors get old fast, I hope one day soon the Carefree Getaway Flashbacks will be standing up here. Thank you.
Thank you, Ross. Our next inductee is being inducted in the all-around category. Faye Finch's early years of softball were with the Earl Grey community and school teams. Her first coach, Evelyn Holinsky, said, as a 10-year-old, she was the total package, with passion, commitment, and a great attitude. She possessed soft hands for fielding, a great bat from the left side, a strong arm, and ran like the wind. In 1968, she joined the CPAC Falconets and remained with the team through the 1977 season. Newspaper articles from the 70s referred to her as the Speedball and declared that she covers more ground in the outfield than any other center fielder in the league. Located with Faye's other memorabilia is the Winnipeg District Senior Ladies League's most valuable outfielder trophy. Faye was the recipient of this trophy for 10 consecutive years, from 1968 to 1977. Offensively, she won 2 batting titles, attended 3 national championships, and numerous Western Canadians throughout her career. Kent Morgan wrote, in my subjective opinion, Faye had the necessary talent to play at the national level if she had chosen to leave Manitoba and develop her skills where competition was stronger. Instead, she chose to keep the CPAC team in operation and the Senior Women's League viable, rather than move to the top team, CUAC Blues. While still playing competitive ball, Faye recognized the need to give something back and chose to become involved with Softball Manitoba. From 1971 to 1977, she was heavily involved in the areas of program and minor development. In 1976, Gary Johnston wrote in his annual report, the accomplishment of the season should go to my co-chairman of the minor committee, Faye Finch, for promoting and organizing a junior girls league. In addition, to keep this league up and running, she stepped forward and served as acting president when no one else would take on the responsibility. In addition to her provincial involvement, she served on the executive of the Winnipeg District Senior Ladies Softball League for several years. She continued to coach and played with a number of different teams from 1983 to 1992. She ended her career coaching the Clubbers Masters softball team. In 1983, Softball Manitoba recognized Faye for her outstanding contribution to softball in her role as an athlete and a builder. 2 years later, she was the recipient of Softball Manitoba's Most Simcoff Award for outstanding contribution or performance in the senior women's category. In the words of her nominators, she has distinguished herself from the local to the national levels and has made significant contributions to the development of softball in the province of Manitoba. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Faye Finch into the Hall of Fame in the all-around category.
Ladies and gentlemen, honored guests, fellow inductees, good evening, or should I say almost good morning. I'm so happy to be here tonight and to have this opportunity to talk softball with all of you. To those of you who knew me in my playing days, no, I haven't lost my supper yet. Stay tuned. What an honor it is for me to be chosen to take a place among the likes of Olive Ben Little, Mo Simcoff, Jim Adams, the CUAC Blues, Smitties, and all the others. They were truly the greats of softball in Manitoba, and I can hardly believe that I belong there with them. What's more, it's a distinct honor for me to be chosen among the others being inducted here this evening. Bobbi Janaway, Sharpe, the Black Knights, well, all of you. It humbles me. When I was a child, my mother was the first to teach me the values I would need to get ahead in my life. She struggled to teach me to say please and thank you, to accept authority, and follow orders. Thanks, Mom, for giving me as good a start for any kid that any kid could ask for, and she's just down there. Thank you. When school began, I learned other lessons. The 3 R's, of course. Also, to work hard, to follow rules, and get along with others. For this, I have many teachers to thank, but one in particular, my elementary school teacher, Evelyn Helensky. Among the other valuable life lessons she taught, and there were many, she also introduced me to a new game, softball. In high school, I learned that I could run fast, throw hard, and had good reflexes. I also learned many intricate and interesting ways to avoid homework and long study hours, but that's another story. I used these newfound skills, yes, even the bad ones, to enhance my enjoyment of what would become a way of life for many years, the game of softball. How many times did I walk into my home from work only to walk right back out again with my glove on my hand? I can't count. Like my mother and my teachers, playing softball taught me many lessons I would need in my life. I learned to work as part of a unit. I learned to trust my teammates, depend on them, and give them someone upon whom they could depend. I learned how to be a leader, make decisions quickly, how to play honestly, show respect for the game, my opponent, and the officials. More than that, softball helped me to develop many solid and long-lasting friendships. Some of you are here tonight. Hi, guys. Thanks for coming. During the 70s, I also took a look inside the workings of Softball Manitoba, acting in an executive capacity. I had the distinct privilege of working with some amazing people: Kent Morgan, Jim Adams, Jean Main, Jerry Howard, Vic Bidherney, Barb Smith, and many others. As in the game, I learned a lot, mostly that Kent was never wrong. Okay, laugh if you will, but sometimes I think it might be true. Yes, softball has given me a lot to be thankful for, not the least of which is the opportunity to acquire a wonderful job, working for a great organization, Sport Manitoba. Really, this is true, and I would say it even if my boss weren't sitting right here in front of me. Hi, Jeff. Thanks so much for coming tonight. It really means a lot to me. I would like to thank a few other people who have been instrumental in my receiving this honor. But relax, I'll keep it short. Again, my mom, always there to support me my whole life. Evelyn Helensky, thanks for seeing the possibilities in that skinny little 10-year-old. Lori LaValle, who taught the 17-year-old kid the skills needed to compete at a senior A level. Jim Adams, who taught me humility, objectivity, and always made me laugh. Thanks, Jim. Thanks to Kent, Jerry, and Evelyn again, great letter writers, and so much more. Thanks to Maureen Dowds and Sheila Kramer for their hard work preparing my nomination. I was told it was one of the most thorough ever. Thank you both so much. Finally, I want to thank all of you for your ongoing and profoundly appreciated support of the Hall of Fame and Museum, as well as the game of softball in Manitoba. Without you, none of this would be possible. Thanks for coming tonight and sharing this special evening with me. Good night.
She mentioned you, Jeff. Sounded pretty sincere. Our next inductee is a legend in the Eastman region. Born in 1944, Ken King grew up in Seven Sisters. At the age of 15, Ken joined the Seven Sisters Fastball Club and became an outstanding pitcher for the team. The Beausejour Review stated he soon became famous for his trademark pitching moves, the windmill and the riser. The windmill pitching is now the norm in fast pitch. Back in the 1960s, it was still in its infancy. From 1959 to 1966, with Ken's prowess on the mound, Seven Sisters captured 7 Northeastern Manitoba championships. Ken was a hot commodity. If Seven Sisters was not an A contender for the provincials, he was recruited by the league champion as a pickup. In that role, he led Pine Falls to 2 intermediate provincial championships, first in 1967 and again in 1970, the only Northeastern fastball team in history to do so. His riser was his trademark pitch. Robin Henschel, Ken's catcher, said, when Ken touched his cap rim, it meant it was going to be the riser, and you'd better be ready. The following story was provided by Ken to the Beausejour Review for an article on January 15th of this year. Let me paraphrase. In 1970 at Provincials, Ken was warming up with Bill Boyer, a retired windmill pitcher who was throwing curveballs and drop balls, but no risers. Ken at that time decided to try his riser. In Ken's own words, he said, Bill didn't realize I would be throwing a rising ball, and I hit him right in the head, broke his glasses, and knocked him straight backwards. We had to get water and ice to revive him, and when he woke up, Bob said, okay, I'll never say there's no riser again. Why is it that all pitchers like stories about hitting people in the head? Ken also played in the 1966 season with the Key West Seals, winning 5 games and losing 2. He retired from pitching full-time in 1979, though you could still see him playing in a few slow-pitch tournaments. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome a pitching legend, Ken King, as we induct him into the Hall of Fame in the athlete category.
Thank you, Kath. First off, I would like to thank my longtime friend, Karen Henschel, for not only nominating me for this award, but also for doing all the follow-up work. Thanks, Karen. I would also like to thank everyone on the voting committee who voted for me. I started playing fastball in Seven Sisters, then afterwards played with Lac du Bonnet, Pinawa, Key West Seals, and most importantly with Pine Falls. My 2 lovely daughters are here with me tonight, namely Nadine and her husband John, and Sherry, who played in her own Canadian championship with some coaching help from her dad. Both my girls are always amazed how I can always recall old ball games. So tonight, I would like to recall a game played exactly 40 years ago. The game was in the 1970 Manitoba Championship and was played in Portage against the Portage team. 3 members of the team were board member Steve Bergson, Terry Owens, who is married to my childhood sweetheart, and 2009 Hall of Fame inductee Dave Shayak. We were 1 run down in the last inning, and Portage got bases loaded with 2 out, and Dave Shayak was up at the bat. Well, we managed to get them out and win our second provincial championship. Also at my table today, I would like to thank my sister Daisy Dales for coming out, my brother Art, my brother Keith and his wife Rosemary, and also Jack Callum. So, to Donnie McDonald, Jeannie Lazarek, Foz Thomas, and Pat Angers, thank you for letting me play on your team, because without that, I wouldn't have won this award. Thank you.
And now our final inductee. Bobbi Little Janaway had a ball in her blood from birth. Her mother, Olive Little, was a member of the Rockford Peaches in the All-American Girls Professional Ball League, and her dad, George Little, was a well-known baseball player in Manitoba. In fact, 11 days after Bobbi's birth, her parents received a contract from the president of the All-American Girls League recruiting Bobbi for when she turned 16 to join the league. Unbelievable. I guess they figured that her mother was a great and her father was a great, that she would be too. We'll never know if she would have played, as the league disbanded in 1954. That did not stop her, however, from becoming an outstanding orthodox pitcher for the powerhouse CUAC Blues, a team that went on to win 36 consecutive provincial championships, 12, it should be 12, from 1960 to 1971. The cry, "Break up the Blues," was often heard among the senior girls softball faithful. Regardless of what the fans wished for, though, the Blues remained together and captured the first ever Canadian Senior Women's Championships here in Winnipeg in 1965. Unfortunately, Bobbi was ruled ineligible to play, as she had played ball with the Bemidji team while attending summer school. The following year, Bobbi was selected as the All-Star pitcher at the Nationals in Toronto. Paper clippings throughout her career read as follows: Bobbi Little was on the mound tossing a 2-hitter. Bobbi Little was the winning hurler with 7 strikeouts. Bobbi Janaway led the Blues with a 4-hitter and 2 hits, etc. After 15 years away from softball, Bobbi dusted off her glove and took to the mound again as she played Masters softball. In 2005, Bobbi was inducted into the Hall of Fame as a member of the 1957 to 1962 CUAC Blues. Tonight, she enters the Hall of Fame on her own merit. Ladies and gentlemen, would you please welcome Bobbi Janaway into the Hall of Fame in the athlete category.
Good evening. First of all, I'd like to congratulate my fellow inductees and also thank the selection committee for this honor. With my family's history, it's not surprising that baseball has played a very important part of my life. This would not have been possible without the support of my family, coaches, and teammates. My first memories of playing ball were in my front yard, where my dad would hit balls to my sister and I. We would field and throw to my mom on first. After fielding practice, we would move to the backyard, where there was a pitching rubber and backstop. I would pitch to mom, dad, or even my grandfather. When I was 12, my mom and dad started the Poplar Point girls softball teams. Being the late 50s, if you can remember that, there were tournaments every weekend. We went to Stonewall, Toulon, Warren, Westburn, McGregor, and Portage. At first, we'd be mercied by the 5th inning. But after a couple of years, we were able to compete for the big prize money of $25, $35, or even $50. Dad always wanted to take our team to where the prize money was the biggest. But girls, being girls, we wanted to go where the boys' team went. At 15, I started to pitch for the COAC Blues, a senior A team in Winnipeg, which represented the Canadian-Ukrainian Athletic Club. John Shaley was the manager, and he had managed my mother when she played on this team in the early 40s. I remember how nervous I was coming into Winnipeg to pitch my first game. But Grace Bouchard, Dot Rose, Joyce Tully, Lori Bradawoski, and Joan Ingram made me feel part of the team right away. I played with COAC for 12 years, from 1959 to 71. Each of these years, we were Manitoba champions. The last 6 years, my sister Frankie also played. The COAC Community Club were so good to us. All our trips to the Nationals, they covered our travel expenses. I feel COAC were so successful for so long because we only had one manager, John Shaley. All the players respected John, and nobody questioned his decisions. With one boss, there was no griping on the bench. This led to everyone getting along. I was fortunate to have played with teammates who not only became good friends, but just as importantly, introduced a young girl from Poplar Point to the good times after the games were over. After 16 years away from the game, I was persuaded to pitch for the Winnipeg Clubbers, a Masters fast pitch team managed by Lila Hornby, and where all the players have to be over 35. It took a lot of practice to get back into shape. My husband and sons took to catching for me in the backyard. I was pretty wild at first, so sometimes my sons put on their hockey shin pads for protection. I played Masters fast pitch for 12 years, first with the Winnipeg Clubbers and then Manitoba Speed. Our teams played in a regular ladies' league and then represented Manitoba at the Masters Western Canadian Championships. We traveled to Yellowknife, Whitehorse, Courtenay, Vernon, BC, Calgary, Saskatoon, Regina. The tournaments were very competitive and we played hard to win. However, at the end of the day, win or lose, we were just happy to still be playing ball at this age. Okay, this has been a very special night for me, and I would like to thank my family, friends, and teammates that have come here tonight. First, the teammates, COAC, the crew over there with Joyce Tully circling the wagons. Then there's the Winnipeg Clubbers and Manitoba Speed. Are we having fun yet? Then I appreciate all my friends being here tonight, and also a lot of people from Poplar Point. Thank you. And my family that's here tonight are my dad, husband Dave, whoops, I knew I was going to do this, son Travis, daughter-in-law Christine, two granddaughters, Caitlin and Victoria, who went home a little early. And there's even some teammates here from my Poplar Point team. Thank you again for coming to help me celebrate this evening. Good night.
that pretty much concludes the evening. I have to tell you that from the beginning, there has been this piece of paper on the podium, and I have waited, because it's bullet form, and it says, you know, thank you, it's humbling. And my favorite part is the very last line says, thank you to wife, in quotation marks. And I so wanted to know why the wife was in quotation marks, but I never found out who this is. Thank you very much for your patience. It is somewhat of a long evening, but for every single person that was up here tonight, it is a very special night. It is a night of memories and something that you don't forget. So your patience and your support of everyone tonight is greatly appreciated. At the back, don't forget on the way out to check and see whether you won a silent auction prize. And hopefully we'll see you all next May. It has been my pleasure.